Hello, thank you so much for having Loretta and I here today. We're excited to be here to talk about our new book, A Life in Parts, and of course, spread the news about Loretta and her message of hope. But first, I want to give you a little background about me and how Loretta and I came to write this book together. I earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mass Communications with a minor in Marketing here at SIUE, but I was a returning student. I began college right out of high school, but I only went a couple of years, and then I took some time off. I went to work, got married, and was transferred around with my husband, who worked for McDonnell Douglas. We lived in some pretty cool places. We lived in California. We were transferred to Australia for 2 years, and I had my first daughter. We lived in Arizona and Florida, moved back to be near grandparents, and I had another daughter, and finally, I had a chance to go back to school. So loved the teachers in Mass Comm, and they made us all work really hard. It was a very hands-on degree. We got down and dirty. We were always doing projects, interviewing people, making videos, taking photographs, whatever. And I got a very versatile degree that has served me well. I've been freelancing now for a long time. I write for several different publications, for hospitals, other companies. I've edited several books. And I've also written for The Telegraph for 15 years. And through that job, I get lots of calls from people with story ideas. And one day, a few years ago, I got a call from Mirka at Dutch Hollow in Godfrey. She told me that she had met this amazing woman who had physical challenges, and I just had to meet her, maybe for an article in The Telegraph. And she said, but I'm not going to give you any details. I just want you to meet her. You just have to meet her. You just have to meet her. So I went to Dutch Hollow, sitting there waiting for Loretta. I'm picturing somebody sad, sick, hurt. In walks Loretta. And she's beautiful, vivacious. She's working the room, and I'm thinking, okay, what's her sad story? I couldn't guess. She sits down and tells us, begins telling it again. She had already told it to Mirka once, but Mirka sat there with us. We all laughed, we cried. I wrote the story and it appeared in the Telegraph, and I got so many phone calls and emails about how amazing it was, how people were inspired by her story. Then I did a follow-up for Flair magazine a couple of years later, and she was our beautiful cover girl. And Dan Brannon at the Telegraph called me and said, do you think she'd be interested in doing a book? The way people respond to her story, I think, it'd be good to try to reach more people. So I called her, and she was flattered and excited, but to think that we thought she could inspire people, because she didn't see herself that way. She had went through this horrifying experience that most of us will thankfully never know, yet she came out on the other side blessedly normal. And that's all she wanted, was to be herself again. And I don't know if I could have faced the challenges that she did before I knew her, but now that I do know her, I think I would be better equipped. And that's usually the effect that she has on people. She's an example that just because parts of your life change, that you don't have to lose your essence. So meanwhile, we worked on the book. Took us 4 years, editing. We read to Loretta in the library. We became regulars at Max Time Out for lunch, and where we discussed strategy. And finally, we were ready. So we began sending out packets to agents and publishers, and finally at a writers' conference that I attended, I was put in touch with Stonebrook Publishing, who they are located in St. Louis, which was attractive to us, and they publish only nonfiction, and their tagline is publishing with a purpose. And we certainly felt like we fit that bill. And before long, we had decided to work with Nancy Bauman at Stonebrook Publishing, but she told us that through the editing process, sending out advanced reader copies, blah, 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 it would be another year. And we were like, a year? We're ready now. Seemed like forever, but now we don't know where that year has gone. And we have this, after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and fun, we have our book. And now I'm going to introduce Loretta herself, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her background and how her life changed after a small, seemingly harmless incident in her home in 2001. So here's the beautiful, delightful Loretta Goebel.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you. It is absolutely a pleasure to be here with you this morning to share with you my story. I am Loretta Goebel. I grew up in a small town north of here called Shipman. That's ship with a P. I graduated high school in 1981, and I brought with me a couple of my favorite high school souvenirs. The ever-fashionable Southwestern Passover PE shorts, and my treasured item, held together by bread ties, homecoming crown, both of which I still wear to this day. And I have to tell on myself here a second. Yesterday when I was preparing this, I thought, someday you might be famous. Paparazzi might follow you around. I might be at the checkout and notice on one of the gossip magazines a picture of my hiney and the PE shorts. Do they really fit? So I tried it. And they did. And that's an accomplishment, because I'm going to tell you a secret. You're not going to tell, right? I can trust all of you. And if this secret gets out, it's one of you that told. I'm going to be 50. And my PE shorts still fit my hiney. After I graduated high school, I earned a degree in public relations, which ultimately landed me a job with Hyatt Hotels Corporation, where I was a convention service manager. In 1994, I chose to do the toughest job ever, be a stay-at-home mom. But I was the stay-at-home mom, and you know this. We're never home. I volunteered at the church, the school, within the community, and for the American Cancer Society, which is where I found myself in December 2001, up to my eyebrows in lists. But I think my story started December 10, 2001. For I ended that day as I do every day in prayer, thanking God for the blessings that I had that entire day with my children, my family, and friends, but also praying for the gift of tomorrow. Tomorrow. The square on the calendar that's filled with things, places to go, people to see, things to do. But do we really know what tomorrow's going to bring until we are given that gift? No. But my tomorrow did come. December 11 was absolutely picture perfect. And I have to say that the ambiance in my home was equally as fabulous. For the holidays were fast approaching, and so I had a Christmas tree in every room. That was 11 in total. Holiday music piped throughout my home, Christmas candles burning, so the scent in the room was just perfect. And I had a meeting in my kitchen over coffee, for the Sunday school Christmas program that I was in charge of was going to be performed on the upcoming Sunday. So Miss Lisa was in my home, and we're finalizing all of our last-minute details. When we were done, and I had another list, Lisa went to her home, and I headed to the basement for, oh my goodness, the bus is going to pull up here soon. I have things I need to get done before my children get off that school bus. So as I'm downstairs going over all my lists, the doorbell rings. I'm certain, being a stay-at-home mom, that at this time of day, it's my favorite man in brown, the UPS man, bringing more fun, fabulous holiday surprises. But in my effort to quickly get to that front door, I run around the corner and I hit my hand. No big deal, right? One wouldn't think so. But that blunt trauma is what changed my life forever. I had a crack in my thumb. A crack that you have from chapped hands in the wintertime. And I took care of that crack. I put antibacterial cream on there. I caked my hands with lotion and wore socks to bed so I wouldn't get any more cracks. But what I didn't know about that crack on that December 11 was that harboring inside there was a strep germ. So when I ran around the corner and I hit my hand, I enlarged that germ into my bloodstream. Later that night, I'm not feeling well. Body aches, chills, fever, but nothing that a hot bath, flannel pajamas, nice cup of tea, and a good night's rest won't cure. But Wednesday and into Thursday, I'm still not feeling better. I'm encouraged to go to the family physician. Influenza, fluids, and bed rest. December 16, in the early hours of that Sunday morning, I am awakened by a severe pain in my arm, a pain that I cannot get past. I awaken my husband Wally and ask him to take me to the emergency room. So we get our son Mitch, who was age 9 at the time, and our daughter Alyssa, age 7, from their beds. We put winter coats over their flannel pajamas and off to the hospital we go. After a quick observation, they notice I have a red line going up my arm. I'm given intravenous antibiotics, pain medication, a prescription for oral antibiotics, and by 6 a.m., we're back at home in our beds. But as the day wears on, I'm not feeling any better. I'm not going to go to that Christmas program. So Wally calls my mom. He says, "Wanda, if you could call her at 6:30, the time of which the program is to begin, I'm sure it would boost her spirits." And Mitch and Alyssa come in the room that evening, all excited about the Christmas program and their special parts, and all dressed in their holiday attire. But they're sad that I'm not going. So I have them come around to the side of my bed, and I give them kisses and hugs and words of encouragement, and remind them I'll be right here when you come home so you can tell me all about it. And the three of them head to church. But upon arriving there, though, I believe that God spoke to Wally, for he felt the need to pass his narration script on to another dad and come home to me. I'm not sure how I looked, but right away he said, "I am taking you back to the emergency room." Well, no, I want to take a bath and put on fresh pajamas. But once out of my bed and into that master bathroom, I am promptly on the floor. Wally helps me up, down the hall, down the stairs, and into the kitchen. The phone is ringing. It is 6:30, and it's my mom. "I'll keep you posted on her," he says, and he helps me back to the car. You know, I had no idea the severity of my health at that moment. I didn't know that death was right around that corner. But upon arriving at the emergency room the second time that day, my blood pressure is 40/20, and I have no registering body temperature. After they conduct several tests, they decide it necessary to ambulance me to a larger facility. And while being placed in that ambulance, Wally is told, by no means is she stable, nor do we expect her to reach her destination. But once there, and after more tests, I am given a 10% chance of survival. I was diagnosed with strep toxic shock. The next time Mitch and Alyssa see me, I am unrecognizable. They have pumped 70 pounds worth of fluid on my body to keep pressure on my internal organs, as my kidneys and my liver are failing. I am unresponsive to their touch and unable to hear about that Sunday school Christmas program. December 19, Wally is told medically, "We've done all we can do for your wife. She needs a miracle. Anyone that needs to see her need to come now." So my family drove upstate, and his family came down from Michigan, as we lived an hour west of Chicago at the time. And yes, my family were in my home, but not to celebrate the holidays as I had planned. My sisters were asked to plan my funeral. Now, I have a best friend, Mary. She lived in Ohio at the time, and she took a total different approach to this news. She turned to her husband and she said, "Wally asked Loretta to fight." She gave him a thumbs up. I couldn't speak to him. I was laboring to breathe, and when he asked me to fight at that second hospital, all I could do was give him a thumbs up. So Mary said, Loretta always does what she's going to do. She's going to fight. She's going to live. And she's going to need something new to wear. I believe I am the first patient in intensive care unit history who received a UPS package from Victoria's Secret. She's still a very good friend. To keep Christmas as normal as possible for a 7 and 9-year-old, Mitch and Alyssa are brought downstate with my parents to be with extended family, and Wally's family head back to Michigan. On Christmas morning, Wally is surrounded with church family and friends in the intensive care unit, and Miss Lisa was there. She brought with her that Christmas CD that we had created for that Christmas program. And so when the traditional Christmas hymns played, everyone that was in the intensive care unit visiting their loved ones on that holy holiday sang along. But we also had praise music on there. For just a few short months earlier, September 11 had happened. And we felt it necessary as the Sunday school music teacher team that we remind the children that although the world seems very scary at times, God is in control. And so, when Shout to the Lord started playing, tears started rolling down my cheeks. And they knew at that moment that that miracle had happened. I am a Christmas miracle. A few days later, Wally went home to tell the children who were now back from their holiday break, Mom's breathing on her own. And my nephew Brian, he stayed with me in the hospital. He was in his early 20s at the time. He's brushing my hair and telling me all about the holiday family stories that I had missed out on. And I notice my hands are bandaged. I asked the nurse to unwrap them. After much coaxing, she does. And I will never forget the look of horror on Brian's face. She unwrapped my right hand first, and my fingers were hard, cold, and black, and my fingernails were green. I said the only thing any good aunt would say to a nephew that she loves so much at a time like this. I turned to Brian and I said, I'll get you, my pretty. She unwrapped my left hand, and it was still very plump from all of the fluid that they had pumped onto my body, chocolate brown in color. You know, I never remember noticing that my legs were wrapped. But the doctors there were ready to amputate. And Wally said, no, I need a second opinion. And he wheeled me out of that hospital on a cardiac chair, carried me to his vehicle, and took me to Northwestern in Chicago. After there for 3 days under heavy observation, they decided it necessary to allow me to go home so that we could see what the body would heal on its own and that I could start processing all of this emotionally. That first night home, Wally carried me in, for you see, my hands and my feet were no longer of use to me. And Mom, Dad, Mitch, and Alyssa are sitting at the table having a family meal, so Wally placed me near my mom where she spoon-fed me. Now, Mitch and Alyssa are ecstatic that Mom's home. But moreover than that, it's near the end of January, and there are Christmas gifts under the tree in the family room that's been calling their name. So once the kitchen's tidied, Wally carried me to the family room and placed me on the couch. The children pass out the packages and help me to unwrap, and the doorbell rings. He placed me in a wheelchair, wheeled me to that front door, and when he opened it, it was the most magical night I had ever seen. For the neighbors knew how much I love Christmas, and collectively had decided to keep their holiday lights lit until I could come home and celebrate with my family. God had the holiday lights out too, for the sky was full of twinkling stars. And it had freshly snowed, so there was a beautiful blanket of white on the lawn. And there on my front porch and on my sidewalk were church family, friends, and neighbors Christmas caroling for us. And when they were finished, they went back to the church to hold a prayer vigil for my family. Now, I anticipated my leg surgery for 5 weeks. Every night we prayed over my feet for blood flow and pink skin. But it's the night of February 21st, 2002. My parents, my in-laws, and my sister Laura are in our home, as in the morning I'm going for that surgery. We had a lovely dinner in the dining room, and afterwards I asked Laura to bathe me and shave my legs. I don't know why that was important, but it's a girl thing. And once we were finished in the bath, I was at the side of my bed on my knees, crying and praying. God, Heavenly Father, you were with your son Jesus when he had to face such pain and suffering through his hands and his feet. I'm your child. Give me the courage to face what I must face in the morning. And I slept like a baby. In the early hours of February 22nd, I crawled to the bottom of the stairs, waiting to be carried to the car for that leg surgery. My dad gave me a big kiss and a hug and said, "I'll be praying for you, Loretta." My mother-in-law said the same. But my father-in-law walked up to me, cupped my cheeks, and simply said, "I like lemonade." What does one say to someone that's going to have their legs amputated? "I'll be praying for you"? Well, absolutely. I grew up in a Christian home, and if it weren't for power of prayer, I wouldn't be here with you today. But I like lemonade? That said a lot to me. That said life dealt you lemons, Loretta. I can't change that. But I know you, and you're going to take those lemons, and you're going to make lemonade. And when you do, I'll be right there with you to drink it. We're at the hospital awaiting the surgeon. The night before, when Laura bathed me, my feet were black, but they were still plump, and it gave me hope that there was some sort of life there. But as we're waiting, we take the socks off my feet, and they're hard and cold and concave. A moment that I know God was saying to me, "Loretta, don't you ever look back and think if you had waited 1 day, 5 days, 5 more weeks, that this would never have had to have happened. No, it is finished. It is time to move forward." That was a Friday. On Tuesday, they wheeled me into Rehab Institute of Chicago, where the doctors there said, "Bilateral amputees are with us for 2 weeks." Well, no. Wally's off on Thursday. I'm going home in 2 days. Those 5 weeks that I anticipated this surgery in a home that was not wheelchair accessible. And by the way, being in a wheelchair means you have to have somebody back there pushing your hiney. And that's not my personality. So I went around our home on knee pads that my sister had purchased at Target and FedExed up to me. And I learned how to go up and down the stairs, in and out of the tub, up and off the toilet, and in and out of my bed. That I went home on Thursday. I didn't stay 2 weeks. Now it's the end of March. I have been waiting for this day what seemed like an eternity, because I have been on my knees and on my hiney for so long that I'm finally going to stand up and move forward. But that day ended up being very depressing for me. Those legs were ugly. They were nothing like the legs that I had to give up. And the pain, when I stood to take those first few steps, my body was drenched in sweat. I didn't know an amputee before I became one. And now I am one, and I don't know if I can handle it. The flame that I had tried so desperately to keep lit is now dwindling. And the very next day, I receive a phone call. A lady from my church had emailed Heather Mills McCartney, Paul McCartney's ex-wife. She's an amputee. They were asking for a letter of hope or words of encouragement for this family that was within the church. But you know, Heather did one better than that. She and Paul were in LA, and she picked up the phone and she called me. I was on the phone with Heather for 45 minutes. Moreover, talking to her about my legs, I complained to her about my hair. I know. I said, Heather, it is coming out in handsfuls. If I could just crawl past the mirror in my hallway and see something of me that has not been altered through all of this, from head to toe, maybe I could handle it. She said, Loretta, don't sweat the small stuff. Get a wig. You know, I look back at that, and I know that God was saying to himself, hair's important to her. But she can't do it right now. She has no use of her hands. So I'm going to take it from her. She's not going to like it. And I didn't. But I'll allow it to grow back in a much more Loretta-friendly texture and style as she relearns how to use her hand. And so you know I did. I bought the most awesome Barbie wig you could ever imagine. And Alyssa and I played beauty parlor in the laundry room. In April, I had my right hand surgery. In July of that year, my left hand. In January of 2004, we moved downstate so I could be nearer my 3 sisters and my parents. And a year later, my sisters said, oh my goodness, you have the best location for a garage sale. Garage sale? I don't like garage sales. But okay, I have boxes that have not been unboxed since the move. So as my sisters are helping me go through that, we come across an inspirational Afghan that was given to me when my legs were amputated. Keep it, sell it, I don't know what to do with it. My sister Laura said, let's put it on the garage sale. If it's meant to sell, it will. If not, we'll just box it back up. So the day of the sale, it's priced and proudly displayed with all of our treasures. And this woman happens to come across our garage sale that Saturday morning. She meanders about, comes across that inspirational Afghan, holds it up, reads it, and then says aloud, this is perfect. Now, if I'm going to have a garage sale, it's going to be full service. So my sister Lola went and asked our shopper if she could take the items from her and place them on the table until she was finished shopping. And this woman shared with her, this Afghan is perfect. My dad just had his leg amputated. And my sister said that is exactly why Loretta received that Afghan a few years earlier. Months go by. A half a year goes by. Our shopper is talking with her cousin and says, I don't know what to do. My dad is not doing well. I wish I could find that woman that had that garage sale, but I've gone up and down 159 knocking on doors, and I can't find her. And our shopper's cousin says to her, well, I don't know her personally, but I'm good friends with her sister. I will get her the information. And so they did, and I went to go visit him, and there on the back of his couch was that inspirational Afghan. Never doubt for a second, in the most ordinary of days, God will use you in extraordinary ways. Ways in which you may or may not ever know. Yeah, even during garage sales. I have so many stories like that from all of this that it is so God orchestrated. I wished I would have journaled it all. It's been such a journey, but it's been okay because God's hand has led me, or his arms have carried me through this whole event. Fall of 2008, Wally and I were divorced. Still on the very same page for our children. We get along great, but our life's journeys were just on separate paths. So yeah, I can say that I've been pruned down to what I call Loretta in the rough. My hair came out in handfuls. I have scars on either side of my mouth where they placed the life support bit in at normal weight, and then filling my body full of fluids, it split the skin. I have 3.5 to 4 inch scars down my side where they kept my body open to quickly whisk me into surgery as they chased the infection. I'm missing the fingers on my right hand. I have no left hand. And both of my legs, can you still hear me okay? Are gone 8 inches below my knee. And you know, your feet are probably killing you from your fabulous shoes you wore today. Popping the leg off is like, oh. Get the shoes off. And I have to share really quickly. I was told once that a bilateral amputee would never wear 2.5 inch heels. But I had a choice to make after being pruned down to Loretta in the rough, and I chose to rebloom. Do you feel as though right now you are being pruned? Lift your face from the soil and raise it to the sun and feel God's warm embrace. For just as He created earthworms that cultivate the soil that we may enjoy beautiful blooms, life experiences cultivate your soul, creating the beautiful you. Allow yourself. Allow yourself, because yes, it is a choice. Allow yourself to let that inner beauty out and be a beautiful blossom in God's precious garden that we call life. You know, through this whole thing, I had a motto that I tried to live by. If you didn't know my story, you wouldn't know my loss. Not because I didn't embrace the fact that I'm an amputee, because quite frankly, I'm reminded of it every day. But because I wanted to fit in, I didn't want to look different, and I wanted me back. I worked hard to find me, and I didn't want sympathy. But that motto has gotten me yelled at multiple times when I park in celebrity parking. I hate the word handicap. Handicap to me is something that you allow to take over your life, that you don't live each and every day to its fullest. That's a handicap. I'm not handicapped. I love my life. And after I get yelled at for parking in that celebrity parking, I get in the car and I fight back tears and I look in that rearview mirror and I think to myself, mission accomplished. If you didn't know my story, you wouldn't know my loss. I've had people ask me about my fingers. There's this lovely chef shop here in Edwardsville, and after frequenting there quite often with my son while my Alyssa was at dance, Nancy finally felt it comfortable to ask me, was it a birth defect or an accident? You know, Loretta, what happened to your fingers? I said, oh, Nancy, Cuisinart food shopper accident. And I can hear my son Mitch in the middle of the store. Oh, Mom. Yeah, I loved me. I wanted me back. And truly, it's been one step at a time. It took a while before I could crawl in front of and ultimately stand in front of a mirror and see me. That's all I wanted. So when I was asked to have my book written, I was surprised, humbled. It was a healing process, but I share my story with a prayer that through something of my story, you too find hope. The last sentence of the book is, I want to be someone else's Heather. I didn't know an amputee, as I had said. I needed that vision of hope. And God put Heather in my life. So that's my goal now, that in some small way, I can be a vision of hope. You know, Vicki and I started, I don't have my thumb painted, but we had Vicki's is painted. The thumbnail is black with the tip in a silver glitter polish. Because a glimmer of hope, that's all it takes. If you can get your eyes off the black and see that sparkle, there's the hope to pick up and move forward. People have asked me, Loretta, what was the biggest accomplishment when you were relearning everything? And most of the time, men say driving. Well, of course, and I do drive an unaltered vehicle. I couldn't wait to haul my own hiney to Target and to haul my children to their events. And women typically say, hair and makeup. Well, yes, I am a hair and makeup girl, and that took a while. But most importantly, I was a stay-at-home mom. And my Mitch, over his whole school career, only took lunch or bought lunch at school maybe a dozen times. So that meant packing lunch every day. I couldn't wait to have that task back. My biggest accomplishment through all of this is the bread tie. Now, I could have rolled that bread bag up and put a clip on it. I could have just twisted it and tucked that underneath the rest of the bread. But that is not what I did. I wanted to master that little skinny wire with the paper on it. And I did. This is, and well, this is my life. But I live it every day to its fullest. Don't miss out on yours. Thank you for allowing me to share this morning.